Hi everyone, it's Josh with Talk About Trek, and I am back again with another Star Trek book review. And this time we went really old school with The Price of the Phoenix. The Price of there's three here. I just read it one time. I read this copy, but this book has many awesome covers, so show those off there. But yeah, The Price of the Phoenix. This is published July of '77 by Sandra Marshak and Myrna Colbreth. One of the earliest Star Trek books, I think maybe the fourth or something like that, or the fourth novel. And really was very interesting. Now, let me get into a little bit about kind of how this went first. I started reading this book on July the 10th, and kind of getting pretty heavy into it. And it's one of these books, too, that really kind of keeps the plot moving along, rolling right with it. So, but then, as life does, you're throwing a major left turn, and I was hit to the very last chapter, and then I had to stop for like 5 days. And then I finally picked it back up today and finished it, and I'm like, whoa, that was pretty good. So we'll get into it, but since my memory won't be quite as fresh, I might leave out some of the details, but we'll just kind of hit the main plot points of this book here. Now, this book finds the Enterprise going to this planet this man called Omni. And this is his planet where it's run by his rules, basically. And it's like the Wild West down there. Kind of like whatever you say goes. So it's a planet of like outlaws and people looking to hide from the law and that kind of stuff. And they're there apparently for like this conference of delegates from all these different people. And the book starts out with a bang. Basically, chapter 1 is Spock beaming up to the Enterprise with a dead Kirk. Kirk is dead. And they take him to sick bay and they confirm it, and Kirk has definitely died trying to save someone in a fire down on Omni's planet. But Spock thinks that there's more going on than just that. So he beams back down to the planet and moves to confront this Omni, who's the leader of the planet. So it was at this point in the book when I realized that my normal strats for taking notes weren't going to work, so I just kind of had to go with a whole different idea here. I think it's just because the book maybe reads a little bit differently, just written a little bit differently, product of its time. But Spock beams down to the planet, and wow, it really gets kind of wild down there. So basically, there was this big plan that this Omni guy had, and Kirk actually was not dead. Not at all dead. So what happened is the Kirk that they found was a double, and Omni has somehow learned the miraculous ability to basically make people. So in his first test subject he's decided to do would be James T. Kirk, of course, because the galaxy needs more Kirks. But his plan is an evil plan, of course. This guy he's very bad. Very bad. So basically what his plan is he has this duplicate Kirk now, and he's going to try to blackmail Spock into leaving the Federation, joining up with the Romulans, and then I'm missing a lot of the detail of this book, believe me. But basically that's kind of the plan. And he's created this alternate Kirk, and real Kirk is actually still alive too. And the idea is basically blackmail Spock into leaving the Federation and breaking the Federation up in the process, because Omni, he don't like the Federation. So, whoa. I'm going to consult my notes quickly here. Alright, so this is where it gets kind of really strange. So, Omni gets away with the real Kirk into his crazy maze of a place that he has. And it's described as kind of like this multi-level giant complex. It's got fire poles zipping from one end to the other. And somehow he escapes with the real Kirk, and they get into like a crazy fight. And at first, Kirk is able to kind of hold his own, but this Omni guy is basically like a giant, and he's super strong. And eventually, he overpowers him and just beats him like half to death. And through a mental connection with his double, this fake Kirk that Omni created, Spock is able to help. They're able to like kind of track him down. But now I'm leaving out a whole character here. So check this out. The Enterprise incident. I should have did some research before I read this, because this book references heavily into that episode. In fact, the character in this book is this character here, the commander from that episode. So the commander is actually initially starts out on Omni's side and is going to be like part of his plan to break up the Federation. But the commander loves Kirk, and the commander loves Spock. I mean, everyone loves Kirk and Spock, right? So she switches sides and does decide that she wants to help them. So she's on the side with fake Kirk and Spock, and they're trying to locate Omni and real Kirk, who's getting just the ever-living tar beat out of him, and they're trying to save him. But like I said, the place is all crazy. There's doors everywhere. There's no good way to find them. And there's fire poles. I love fire poles, but man, that sounds kind of crazy. So they do eventually find him because they're able to connect to his mind. So Spock mind melds with fake Kirk, and then they're able to connect that way and kind of track down where he is. We'll get the commander off the screen there now. So, but anyway, she is a really cool character, and it seems weird they don't ever give her a name. The whole book, she's just the commander. And another thing that's weird about this book is they often refer to Spock as the Vulcan and Kirk as the human. And it's kind of strange, and in capital letters always too, so they get kind of weird. Now, they do manage to find him, Omni and Kirk, basically right at like the very last moment before he's gonna finish him off, it looks like. They are able to stop him from doing that, but he escapes again through one of his fire poles and his weird things. Escapes to his secret hideout this time. And this time he heals Kirk. So he's beat him to the edge of his life, and now he heals him back. So it's all this kind of like alpha male thing that he's got. He wants to control him, and he was trying to basically make him give up. And of course, Kirk, even through all that, he never gave up at all. Now, they're still able to kind of sense him through the mind melding, so they're still tracking him down, and they get to closer and closer to his little secret passage. Kirk passes out there in the secret area, so then Omni comes out and confronts them. And at this point in the book, I was like, man, I know I'm missing something. And it was that point I wish I'd known about watching the Enterprise incident before this book, so that I was a little bit more versed on the commander and kind of everything that went on in that. So, but it all boils down to, in the end, and of course, you could see this coming the whole time. Spock versus Omni in this like big battle to save Kirk and fake Kirk and everybody. And Spock, even though this Omni guy is gigantic, is able to get the upper hand with him, and instead of just killing him, is actually going to forcibly remove all the memories that this Omni guy has of Kirk and him beating up Kirk and everything, and basically make him forget Kirk. And then to Omni, he's like, oh, this is awful, that can't happen. So he actually pulls out his revolver, and he shoots himself in the head. But this guy has got some way to cheat death, of course. So that's not going to be the end of it. So they beam back to the Enterprise, have a kind of metaphysical discussion about, okay, so we got two Kirks now, what are we going to do with them? They decide that they're going to make one of them a Romulan. So you're going to get yourself a nice Romulan Kirk. We've seen that before there. But they make the fake Kirk into a Romulan. And the idea is basically that he will have to go and live with the commander for the rest of his days. And so it's just very weird, right? But it all kind of fits, and it flows with the story. But that's the plan. So but right at the end, basically they make that decision, and it even looks like that the fake Kirk is kind of like okay with being a Romulan and moving into that and living that lifestyle with her. boom, 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 Omni beams in to the area where they're all at. So I'm like, wow. At that point, I was like, wow, this book is good. It's got some madness. So he beams in and he grabs Fake Kirk. And I keep calling him Fake Kirk, but they actually, in the book, they make it so that he's James, and then the real Kirk is Jim. So he grabs James, and then basically everybody tries to jump at him. Even Bones tries to like sneak a hypo spray in, but everybody gets thrown off. Everybody gets knocked down, and it's just basically him holding him, and he's got the upper hand. Kirk then kind of steps up. The real Kirk steps up and kind of talks to him, talks him down, and basically what he's doing is he's buying time. Because it turns out in the end, Kirk and Spock had a plan all along, and Scotty kind of comes in the last moment, does some transporter tricks, disarms him, and they are able to kill him, finally. So Omni dies, but does he? Because at the very last moment, his body beams away. Whoa! And then at the end of the book, and like this is like I said, it's kind of like a train ride from the beginning to the end, and it doesn't stop. And you never leave the action. You're constantly with it. It's just written in kind of a strange way with these kind of short, jerky chapters, and sometimes they're long. But it really does just keep you like pulling along. But at the end, James leaves with the commander. So here, let's get one last look at James and the commander. So they leave to go back to Romulus. So at the end of this book, there are 2 Kirks out there in the universe. Whoa! So what happens with that one, we'll never know. But man, that was a cool book. Like I said, it makes me wish that, and I don't do this often because when I read a book, typically, once I decide to read it, I don't look up anything about it. But I should have did that with this so that I could have watched that episode and had kind of maybe her actor's presence more in my mind as I was reading it. But very fun book. Very glad I picked it up. And I was just looking at this, and all 3 of these books have completely different backs as well as covers. And this one completely spoils a big part of it. So, yeah, let's say less is more. I like this one. This one back is good. But anyway, Star Trek: The Price of the Phoenix. A fun little read. Definitely worth your time. Especially if you're into the whole just Kirk and Spock dynamic. Because that's what this whole book is about, basically. And then you get double Kirk. You get twice the Kirk. So you can't beat that. 2 times the Kirk, right? What's going to come up next? I don't know. I'm thinking we're probably going to jump back into the numbered TNG books. Because it has been quite some time since we've hit that. So we finished off with 16, Contamination. So we'll move to number 17 next, possibly. Unless something else jumps up. Also, that shelf up right there is due for a dusting and reorganizing. So my son and I are going to hit that sometime this week and hopefully make a little video of what's going to become a Kirk and Bones shelf up here. So maybe we'll get a little bit of the Kirk and Bones shelf in a video coming up soon. So anyway, as always, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Live long and prosper, and we'll see you next time. Bye.